Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationships, and it's by user Flora Ray. My husband is reluctant to be intimate with me after I was in a major accident. I, 30 female, have been married to my husband, 45 male, for 5 years, and together for 8. Obviously, we have an age gap in our relationship, and whenever we discussed possible health issues or medical care, it was regarding him. However, about 4 months ago, I was in a car accident. I was talking on Bluetooth to my husband because I was nervous driving on the icy roads going to our house when another car rounded the corner too fast and lost control. It was one of those exact wrong moment things, and my car went off the road and into a tree. My husband heard the whole thing, and my last memory before I lost consciousness was him screaming my name. I don't want to get into the details, but I ended up being in the hospital for over a month. I needed multiple surgeries and have been in physical therapy ever since. I am finally getting to a point where I feel like myself again, and I'm no longer in pain. I've gained back some weight and look good if I do say so myself. My husband literally worked out of my hospital room for the entire time I was there. He went home to shower, sleep, and look after the dogs. Then he would come right back. He attended all my therapy appointments so he would know how to better help me recover at home. He was amazing and everything I could ask him to be in that kind of horrible situation. I love him so much, and so yesterday, while shopping, I saw this gorgeous black lingerie set and decided to surprise him. We haven't had sex since before the accident, and every time I try, it feels like he makes an excuse or expresses some concern about some random body type of mine that is no longer injured. He was on his laptop in bed when I came in wearing my new purchases, and I could tell he was taken by surprise. I basically crawled into his lap and started kissing his neck and initiating some foreplay. He was definitely aroused, but then he lost it and pushed me away, saying that we shouldn't rush this and he doesn't want to jeopardize my recovery with sex. I was crying by the time he ended the sentence and said, "I'm fine. The doctors say sex is fine," but he was already walking into the bathroom and turning on the shower. I don't know what to think. Is it the scars? Is the memory of me in a hospital bed unable to even sit up by myself repelling him? I finally am starting to feel good about myself and my body again, and the fact that he won't touch me is really hurting my mental health. It's probably a long shot, but has anyone else experienced this? Well, OP, first of all, what you went through was horrible, and it's great to know that you've recovered. I hope you keep getting and feeling better every day. Now, as to what's going on with your husband, I don't think he's repulsed by you in any way. And I don't think it's you, I think it's him. What you went through wasn't just you going through it, he was right there with you. He wasn't physically injured like you, but he must have gone through hell having heard everything that happened to you and then being with you at the hospital. So the doctors say that you're fine and that sex is okay, and that's great news. However, he might not have internalized that yet. In my opinion, as an ignorant non-expert, I would say that you guys need some counseling. You've mentioned being in physical therapy, but you haven't mentioned anything about therapy for you, for him, or even couples therapy for the both of you. This was a traumatic experience, and it wasn't just about your body getting better in order to pick up where you guys left off. You went through a lot, the both of you. So I know that what he did could seem like a rejection, but I don't think that was it, and I don't think you should take it like that. And that's why I think you guys need some professional help. And what about you guys? What do you think OP should do in this situation? Let me know in the comment section. And now for the comments, I usually read more than one, but in this case, I'm gonna read just one that gives us everything that we need from the whole comment section. Mahik Kani Hand says, "So, I'm not a mind reader, but his reaction makes a lot of sense to me when I think about the last 4 months from his perspective. He heard you scream and then nothing from you. Presumably, he heard the crushing metal of the crash. For him, there was a period of time when he did not know if you were dead. Maybe he had to direct first responders to try to find you and had to learn whether you were alive from them. The fact that you were in the hospital for more than a month says to me that he was almost certainly told you might die even once he learned you were alive. The fact that he lived in your hospital room was probably as much for him as for you, because if he wasn't there and something happened, you might die and he wouldn't be able to stop it. It's very possible he spent that entire month in crushing fear, trying to consciously or subconsciously guard you against death. He almost certainly spent at least several days in that state. I'm assuming that the focus since then has been mostly on getting you physically okay. It's only been 4 months, and he's probably spent them all in caretaker mode. The thing about the caretaker mode is that you push your own issues to the back. You don't focus on any healing you might need to do. Note that I'm not justifying that necessarily. Sometimes people go into the caretaker mode or stay in it not because somebody actually needs care, but because our own fear is too scary to face, and that mode keeps us from having to deal with it in the short term. For him, the trauma of being unsure if he would still have you tomorrow is still almost certainly unhealed. As for why he responded that way, people tend to store emotional pain they're not addressing yet in the body. Tight muscles, strained postures, clenching. People grind their teeth and bunch their fists under stress for a reason. We do similar things to the rest of our body. That kind of trauma can feel like a physical spring stored under tension. When you went to initiate intimacy and started touching his body in a way that normally creates a strong reaction, you added those feelings on top of the stored feelings, but pulled in a different direction, and the spring destabilized and went off. You basically accidentally took the lid off a pressure cooker before it had a chance to vent. I think that's why his response was centered around fear for your safety, even though you're feeling much better and not worry yourself. All that trapped fear just kind of blew up in both your faces. If that's what happened, it's not necessarily anything in your relationship that needs to heal. It's just that he needs to step back now and take the time to face that crap down. I'd strongly recommend therapy to help in process. I also, on a personal level, find that crying tends to let some of that tension back out. I tend to use a Pixar movie to get the tears going. It sounds a little silly, but it helps some. Additional information from OP's comments. I have thought about therapy, but to be honest, I don't like talking about the accident. I guess that since I feel better physically after living in pain for so long, I'm just excited to just start living my life again. I'm reluctant to dive into another aspect of damage this effing accident did to me and to us. I understand that we would benefit from it, but the thought of starting that healing after I just had to go through months of physical healing sounds exhausting. He has been extremely physically affectionate with me since the accident, bordering on clingy. Even when I was still in the hospital, he was touching me almost constantly, even if it was just a hand on my leg or holding my hand. Now that I am home, he holds me all night long, which is something we didn't often do pre-accident. I was kind of expecting sex to factor into that and it to be a once you start you can't stop kind of thing. I was hoping seeing his wife in black lace would be enough to flip the switch back, but apparently not. Now, I don't know if he's worried about getting me accidentally pregnant and what that could do to my healing body. However, I'm on birth control and would like to remain on it until I'm done with physical therapy and have been cleared by every specialist under the sun, but accidents do happen. I had an accidental pregnancy on birth control and then a miscarriage early in our relationship. Also, for all of you so outraged about our age gap, it's ours, not yours. Every relationship is different. For some, the difference might be difficult. For us, it worked. When I was 22, I had already graduated from college, had a good job, and had custody of my little brother, 16 at the time. I was at a very different point in my life than the typical 22-year-old. Meanwhile, my husband is an extreme introvert and has difficulty maintaining relationships, so he was a little stunted emotionally. We've grown a lot together and he makes me so happy. We were both consenting adults and that's all I'll say about the issue. Thank you everyone for your kind comments. I think I realized that just because I physically feel better, it doesn't mean our lives can magically go back to normal, which was basically what I was trying to do. We both went through major trauma and pretending it didn't happen will only be damaging to both of us. I can't say how much I love this man. He is my whole world, and the thought that he has been hurting but trying to protect me from it by staying silent makes me feel sick. The bottom line is we both need to go to therapy to unpack everything that happened and develop some healthy coping mechanisms. Another part of this was that we were trying for a baby before the accident and I was excited to get back to it. Okay, well, I think the comment that I read gave us all a lot of insight into what's going on in the husband's head, and also OP gave us some context regarding everything that's been going on in the background even before the accident. So now let's continue this story with the first of two updates. Thank you again for everyone's kind and thoughtful comments. I read all of them, even if I didn't respond. Last night, when we got in bed, I curled up next to my husband and held him while I said basically, we've been through a lot. Would you be willing to get therapy with me to make sure everything is alright for both of us? I love you so much and I don't want any underlying trauma to affect our relationship. He was silent for about 10 seconds and then the floodgates opened. I've only seen him cry once or twice in our entire relationship. At our wedding and the first time I told him I loved him. But I held him while he sobbed for what was probably an hour. He kept apologizing for it and I had to keep saying, "Don't be sorry, I'm here, cry if you need to cry." And I shed some tears of my own. It was an exhausting but ultimately extremely cathartic experience. When it was all over and he was able to say more than a few words, he told me that there were about 15 minutes when he was sure he had just heard the love of his life die. Then we got to the hospital and the doctors made it clear they would do everything they could, but the extent of my injuries were extreme and severe. Then he spent hours calling family members, waiting, pacing, and trying to grapple with the fact that I might die and he might be alone. Then I spent 5 days in the ICU, mostly unconscious. He said he's never known fear like that in his life. In the end, we agreed to go to individual and couples therapy and even touched on the sex thing, wherein he admitted that he knows objectively nothing bad will happen to me if we have sex, but for some reason it is sparking this protective instinct that makes him want to treat me like class. So we're working on it and our marriage is amazing. He's the love of my life and we can get through this. Alright, steps taken. So now let's move on to the final update to see how this story ends. Hi everyone, first of all I want to say I was absolutely blown away by the outpouring of love and support received on my first post. I never could have imagined it would blow up like that, and I received so many thoughtful and kind comments and messages from strangers. That being said, when I wrote that, I was in a weird place. Physically, I had mostly healed, but I was determined to shove down any emotional trauma because I was so exhausted from the previous months of work trying to heal my body. I wanted to be alright, and I wanted my marriage to be the same as it was before the accident. It's been a month since my original post, and my husband and I just attended our third marriage counseling appointment. I'm very happy to report the exercises and the worksheets we've been given are helping rebuild the husband-wife relationship instead of the caregiver and patient relationship which has been present for the last 5 months. For him, as he explains it, it was like walking around with this tightness in his chest. For months, like he was in physical pain and constantly ready to react. In the last few months, it started to fade and even disappear at times, but it still comes back on occasion and it's paralyzing. The good thing is that he just had his first individual therapy appointment a few days ago and I have mine next week. In short, we're putting in the work. We also started having sex again, like a lot of sex. I feel silly bragging about that in the internet at large, but it makes me so happy that we figured out that part of all this. Prior to the accident and really throughout our whole relationship, we've been so ridiculously into each other. It was rare we even skipped a day. I missed having that connection to him and he was clearly hurting too. A few weeks after my original post, he had a crazy long workday, so I made his favorite dinner and I was finishing up when he came in. He kissed me really deeply and told me how much he loved me and how grateful he was for me. Then he kissed me again and we didn't stop. I kind of thought our first time back at it would be more romantic than the kitchen floor, but it was honestly amazing. Afterward, we talked and he confessed he didn't know why that was the moment, but he got home and things felt totally normal in the best way. We ate dinner naked in bed and I honestly have never felt closer to him in my life. We are very lucky. And yes, we have lots of making up for the past few months. We've agreed to resume baby making efforts at the end of the year. Winky face. Anyway, I just thought everyone deserved an update. Many hearts. Alright, OP, well, this is an awesome update. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And all the best to the both of you in all of your efforts from here on out. Take care. Now, let's move on to the mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Mr. Saturday45. Boss says I have to scan packages before I load them, then gets mad when I refuse to load unscanned packages. First things first, the backstory. I work at a large hub facility of a well-known shipping company as a package handler. Essentially, it's our job to handle the packages as the name implies, pulling them off trucks, sorting them out, and putting them into new trucks depending on where we're put in the facility. I work in the main delivery trucks that deliver packages to homes and smaller businesses. The packages come with barcodes on the side as well as small spot labels that allow someone to see the address, which part of the facility they go to, and which truck they are to be put on. We used to be given small scanners that would scan the barcodes in order to ensure we didn't put the packages on the wrong trucks or get a package that didn't belong in our area, as sometimes the labels could be wrong due to human or technical errors, or a package might lose its label. The trucks are fitted with sensors, so if you scan a package and try to walk into a truck where it doesn't belong, the scanner would start to whine. With that setup, now enters our main antagonist in the story, Alan, my former supervisor. Alan is a short, skinny guy with a thin mustache and is a micromanager of the highest degree. He always walked up and down the trucks to watch us work, watched us from a distance or close by with his arms crossed to get us to work faster, and constantly told us to grab all of our packages as they come to us, despite the fact they go around on a moving conveyor belt that literally loops them back if we miss them. Told us to load up our larger packages as soon as we get them, despite the fact it makes it harder to move through the trucks and place other packages on the shelves, and even hopped into some people's trucks to move packages around the right way, his way. I can go on and on about Alan, but today I'm here to vent about just one of these events, or we would be here all day. So anyways, Alan had me and all the other package handlers of our area in a group texting chat in order to tell us our start times for our next shift, as well as compare our work speeds to each other via our scanning account. I assume to make us feel bad and work harder, but we don't really care. Around that time, the number of packages we missed loaded onto our trucks, as we call them, had increased. And ever since, Alan had been adding to his group messages that we need to scan every package and to make sure we are aiming for 0 misloads. Annoying, but nothing too serious. At least I thought. So one day, I'm working on the belt as usual, and my scanner suddenly decided to screw up on me, as they tend to do if smacked or if the battery comes loose. I go to Alan and ask him if he could help me fix it or give me a new one to use. Instead, he takes it and tells me to keep loading my trucks without the scanner and just use the labels on the packages. This isn't really allowed, and instead I chose to stack the packages in front of the trucks so I can scan them once I get a new scanner. Alan eventually comes down and tells me to just load them into the trucks normally and to stop stacking. Frustrating, but I shrug and do it to try and avoid any real conflict. That evening, Alan messages the group and lists out our speeds with me at the bottom, and is once again spouting on that we need to make sure we are scanning our packages before loading them, and even comes to talk to me the next day about my number of misloads. I'm angry, of course, as he is the one that told me to do it, but at that point I was still fairly new to the job and didn't feel comfortable arguing with the supervisor, so I just tried to continue on with my work with a mental note of always scanning my packages no matter what, so he can't pull this again. Unaware that this will be my malicious compliance later on. Fast forward a few months later, Alan is leaving for real estate and is trying one of the package handlers to be his replacement before he leaves. By that time, I am fed up with all the micromanaging and pestering and can't wait for him to be gone. It's about the final week of his employment that I'm working the belt, and once again my scanner is on the fritz and stops working. I hand it over to Alan once again, and just like before, as if he has never cared about scanning, he tells me to keep loading the trucks. I smile to myself and nod, so I continue stacking my packages in front of my trucks, waiting for that new scanner to arrive. Not long after, Alan comes back with the trainee at his side. He asks me what I am doing, and I tell him I'm stacking my packages. Once more, he tells me to keep loading my trucks, and this time I talk back, telling him I'm not loading them without a scanner. I have to admit, at this time, I was done with Alan and let my anger get the better of me, raising my voice and getting a bit shaky as I have a very hard time dealing with anger, especially after dealing with his crap for so long. The trainee tries to settle the situation and tells me to just keep stacking and they'll get a scanner right away, but is interrupted by Alan telling me once again to load my trucks, this time louder. I flatly respond no, and thus it goes back and forth like this for nearly half a minute before I eventually tell him to get it to me in writing because I'm not getting fired over this. Remember, we are not supposed to load a package without scanning it, and can indeed get in trouble if they can prove we did it intentionally. This seems to get him even madder, and he eventually tries to pull the head supervisor card. He asks me if I would like him to get the head supervisor to try and intimidate me, I guess. I wasn't able to chuckle in my anger and just told him to go ahead and go get him. He and the trainee walk off with him storming down the belt. A few minutes later, the trainee comes back with a scanner in hand, apologizing and telling me to just get back to work. I didn't see Alan for the rest of the day, and if memory serves, the rest of his final week as well. Sorry if it was not an explosive as some of the other posts, but this was just my first real malicious compliance, and I hope you enjoyed the read all the same. And to any supervisors reading this, please just let us do our freaking jobs. Well, OP, you did exactly what was expected of you, so good for you. Good riddance to Alan, and thank you for sharing, OP. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.